Okay, welcome back to configuring firewalls for a high availability cluster. So we'll sign into the primary machine here, and we'll go ahead and we'll check this out as it is. Everything should be fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. So what we're going to do is we are going to go under Firewall, if we can. This mouse is junk. Virtual IPs, and we will start adding them. So we want CARP, which I think, if I remember right, stands for Common Access and Redundancy Protocol, but I don't remember exactly. So give it an address. This one is for the WAN, so we will need to do that for all of our addresses, as far as I know. So, I don't know, this sounds as good as anything else. It can be, for this it can be anything, because this is just my wide area network, which is running on DHCP, or at least it was running on DHCP. It might not be now. If I give this a static address, that might break the DHCP. But these should be at /24. Virtual IP password. I'm going to just leave that alone and set it to nothing. So that should all be okay. Oh, nope, it needs a password. Alright, so we'll just put in a password then. I don't think it really matters. This is a private network. If you were smart, you'd set that up properly. So we'll add another one. Now, you don't need to do anything right now for the secondary node. XMLRPC sync is supposed to do that for you, assuming that it actually works. This should give us all of our interfaces that we need to configure. The last one that I've got on here, OPT3, is used for syncing for PFSync and also XMLRPC sync and all that stuff. It's got a separate interface. So we'll go ahead and we will apply those changes. We should already have our sync interface over here, which is set up. Everything there should be fine. I'm not going to worry about any of the rest of that stuff. So that's already set up. I'm not going to adjust that. And so what we are going to do is we are now going to go over to our backup node. And let's see, what is actually set up here? I don't have a whole lot. So I'm going to have to set up this one. Shouldn't have to set that up. I'm not going to adjust DHCP yet. I think XMLRPC sync should take care of that. And we'll come into our OPT3 network. We'll enable it. This should be static. It'll let me select it. And again, we'll do the same thing. This one is .4.2. 24. Alright. Everything else should be fine. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. It's a network there. So when we've configured that, we'll come back over to this machine. And we'll start adding firewall rules. So we'll go over, again, we'll do that on both systems. We'll go over here, and we will add a pass rule, OPT3. We'll go for any protocol. Source should be OPT3 network to any address. In theory, that's how that should work. I really don't know. So that's this network, and then again we'll do the same thing over here. just so the two of them can communicate. Any protocol from this net to any address. Come on, there we go. So we'll go now. The next step is to enable PFSync. We'll go into high availability sync, and we will select synchronize states. The interface that we want to use, if it'll let me select it, is OPT3. You probably don't need to set this, but I'm going to. Okay, so now comes the XMLRPC stuff. Now, in order to do this, both systems need to have an account with the same password on it. Same username, same password. So, in the case of my setup, the administrator user, the one that you use to log in, which is the only one that you get by default, they have different passwords. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've just added in a separate one here. The only privilege that you really need is the so-called system HA node sync privilege. The admin user has everything, so you can use the admin user if you want. In most situations, you probably would anyway. But in this one, I'm not. In this one, I'm just using this. Ultimately, the security aspect of it, it will tell you if you go ahead and go into groups here and you find your group where you've only got that one thing. It will tell you down here that users in this group effectively have administrator level access. So it really probably ultimately doesn't really matter. You can just use administrator, you can do that. You don't need to do it the way that I've done it. So that's what we're going to do. Alright, so we've configured that. Now we can go back into high availability sync and we can set this up. So we want that. Do not set the IP and password on backup. So you want to do this on your primary, which is this machine. And then we'll put in that. We'll have to put in our password, which in this case is a valid password because there's security implications. And select options. You could probably select them all. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we will go ahead and hit save. And we'll see what happens. In theory, the two machines should talk to each other. And we might even see that if we come over here to our status and we go to, where do I want? Oh, I know, I wanted firewall rules here. And we go on to this. Oh, we don't see anything. Okay. I would have thought that we would have seen something. Guess if we get an error message, we'll know that it's not working. And we get an error message, okay. Okay, I figured it out. It was really actually quite simple. Because my interface assignments, or the identifier assignments and FreeBSD are wrong, I had plugged it into the wrong network. So now this should all be good to go. I had it plugged in here at first, and this was obviously not correct. So now if we come over here, in theory anyway, should be no errors or anything of the sort. And if we come over here, I wonder if we can see it now. If we go over to rules and we come here, there's still nothing really. Although if I come and I go to high availability sync, let's just hit save and see what it happens to do. It's taking a bit of time. I wonder if that's normal. Could be. There we go. Yeah. So now we've got stuff going on. So everything should now be synchronized the way that it should be, or the way that it's desired. So next step is to go ahead and set up network address translation, or the NAT. So if I can find that, that's right here. The option we want is under outbound, and we want manual outbound NAT. If I hit save, we should then get a bunch of this stuff. This is all for WAN address. Okay. Something has definitely happened here. I think we've managed to get 2 sets of rules, because I've already tried to set this up once, and, well, that didn't really work too well. So, I'm going to delete these auto-generated rules, because I've already got them. At least that's what it looks like to me, so... Okay, so I'm going to interject here with some details, because I realize I didn't actually even talk about this. What you need to do is set it to manual outbound NAT, and then all of the auto-generated rules, and you'll get probably quite a few of them. In my case, there were quite a few of them. Depends on the number of interfaces you've got. I mean, it generates, I believe it was 4 for different localhost addresses, and then 2 per network interface. So, yeah, that's a lot of interfaces. I think that's about 5, so that's 10 things there, and then 4, that's 14 entries. Each one of them needs to be changed from the so-called WAN address to the CARP VIP address. In my case, the 137.5. In your case, it'll be whatever it happens to be. But it needs to be changed to that, otherwise this isn't going to work. Alright, so I've done that. I've saved it. I believe that is how it needs to be done. I hope that's how it needs to be done, because that's the way I've done it. I guess we'll find out if it just breaks everything. Next step is to go to the DHCP server for our LAN addresses, and there are 3 of them in my case. We're here on the DHCP. This is all well, fine, and good. The gateway needs to be .3, which is our CARP address, and the DNS server, which it's not listing, but the DNS server that I'm going to use, I better make sure that address is set correctly, and it is. So we'll try that. And we'll see what goes on. We'll just set it to that. Actually, we'll put that in there just as a fallback in case. Everything should be okay. We'll hit save on that. Well, that's a pain in the butt, but I think it's working now. I got a user here, and it's got synchronized across both. And I'm sure if I delete it here, because I mean I don't want to keep it, I don't really need it. In theory, it should also be deleted from here, and it is. So that's working now, at least. If we go into groups, and I actually do this here, this is the permission subset that I gave: HA node sync, user system copy files to home directory, shell account access, SSH tunneling. I probably don't need these last 2. I might not even need any of them. In fact, I think this one won't even work. But I think the one that really I needed was this. Let's access all pages, and maybe not even so much that. But what needed to happen is web configurator access needed to be given. So I just gave it access to all pages. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter. This is on a private network. Actually, it's on like a private network that's behind a private network that's behind another private network. So in my case, really probably doesn't matter that much. So I don't remember where I was on this. And I think what I needed to do, actually there was one more thing I needed to do for the DHCP servers. Because there's a failover peer IP. So that was, come on, not what I needed to do. So I needed to actually put that in. So that should be set. I'll hit save on it. And we'll have to do the same thing for all of these, or all the ones that I set up in the first place. maybe that'll do what it needs to do, and then I'll verify. I'll come over here, and I'll actually check that. If I go to Dhcp Server, and I come to this, failover peer IP is set up properly, so that works great. Probably going to add more DNS servers at some point, but for right now, this should be good enough. Okay, so now, if we come over here, and we go to the NAT, I want to make sure that the NAT actually adjusted correctly. We go to Outbound, we got manual Outbound NAT, everything is good on that. And then the next step is just to verify everything is working. In theory, we go to CARP, and OPT1 is not quite working. If we come over here to this thing, let's see what kind of status we've got. Oh, okay. No, I think I know what's going on. Is because the interface isn't actually hooked up to anything. Eventually, that will be changed. And again, it's the same deal with this. So, you can see here, it's set up properly on the two interfaces that it's supposed to be connected to, that are actually connected. And this one is, again, the same deal. It's connected the way that it's supposed to be. This one is going to the one backup server. Again, that's going to be figured out eventually. Same deal with this. It'll be figured out. For right now, this is what it's supposed to do. And that'll be that. So that is pretty much it for the configuration. If I decide to make a further video doing all of the testing, then we'll go ahead and we'll do that. But I think I'm going to have to configure a bunch of other things first, because these computers are not set up to use the thing. So if I go into, let's say, a command prompt window, and I go to ipconfig, you can see it's still set up to use .1. Now if I release and renew that, we'll see what it ends up doing. Yes, that is a public network. We have .0.3. Alright, so that is working. Should be able to access the public internet. And I can. That seems to be working just fine. So that's good. So now all of the devices are going to have to be reset. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm probably going to go into each of them individually and run ipconfig or if up and if down on those and get those working that way. But that's it for this video. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope maybe it was helpful in some way to somebody. And that's that.